a good 15 minutes recording this video only to realize that Gunter had jumped up onto the computer and stopped the recording. So I'm glad I realized that so that I could resume the video. I want to talk to you guys about the cat and cow motion of yoga. It's a very simple movement. It's a foundation to a yoga practice, and I do have a how-to video on how to do it. But I really want us to explore it this time, to really take some time to think about things. So it's going to be a slow, long, drawn-out process. Really good for learning yoga in general, getting to know your body, and especially great for beginners because you're really breaking it down and taking it slow. You're doing this on your own or wherever you're at out there in the world. And so I just hope this helps you because this is one of my most favorite pieces of my practice, and I love using it both for when I wake up in the morning and also when I go to bed at night. When you're waking up in the morning, you're moving the spine around, which gets this, oh, Gunter coughs sometimes, and it's the cutest little sound, but I was like, what was that? Anyway, so the spine gets this, moving the spine gets the synovial fluid going, and then it also creates this little massage for the internal organs, waking up the internal organs, and then using the breath to tap into the parasympathetic nervous system really helps to completely calm you and let you tap into that calm center of yourself, which completely turns off the stress response. And in our world today, we're very often living in a stress response 24/7, especially because our thoughts are, excuse you, are you okay? He gets like hairballs, so he is fine if you guys can hear him coughing. No, not to worry, I promise. We're taking good care of the little guy. Don't you dare turn that off again. Come here, come here. Not that he wants to be held. Okay, so turning on to the parasympathetic nervous system, turning off the stress response because our thoughts affect our stress response. When we are worrying and stressed out, and it's just crazy to think that our thoughts are a part have an effect with all of this stress response in our body. I don't want to ramble on about that. It's something I could go on forever. Let's get on our mat. So I want you to meet me in a tabletop position. Let's bring this forward ever so slightly. Okay. So tabletop position, we're on hands and knees. Knees are under the hips, about hip width apart, and then our shoulders are over the wrists and the hands. So when you're here, usually your hands are just straight out in front of you with the middle fingers pointing up. Just like this. I want you to ever so slightly turn your hands out. Notice that difference. Just ever so slightly turning the middle fingers out and up towards the edge of the mat. Like it's not even half an inch. Very careful, just like that. Because what this does is that it allows you to externally rotate up through the bicep, through the shoulder, and open up the shoulders and open up the chest, allowing you to do the cat-cow movement a lot easier. So let's play with this. First of all, we're just in the tabletop position. Let's do fingers straight ahead first, turning the middle fingers back to pointing to the top of the mat, and just gently leaning forward and leaning back. And just noticing where you feel that pressure, and then turning the hands out ever so slightly and doing it again, and noticing if you just feel a difference. For me personally, and just so you know, this is a very small movement. We're not like big, huge rocks here. It's just very subtle. You're just paying attention to the hands. And for me, when my fingers are pointing, when middle fingers are straight on to the top of the mat, I really feel a strain in my elbow and in my wrist. So it's really nice to just find opening that up ever so slightly can really help to turn everything else on appropriately in the body. Oftentimes when I say this, turning the hands out ever so slightly, I look around the class and I have people that have turned their hands out completely. And you know, there is no complete right or wrong in yoga because it's getting to know your body, it's getting to know yourself by exploring yourself. And so if you find something that is unconventional but works for you, that's great. I don't necessarily recommend turning your hands out this far because for the average person, it doesn't really work with the anatomy of the body. It's just too far rotated, and then you're putting weird, kind of like a weird weight on the wrist. You're not able to get into the full hand. So for now, let's just start with exploring this motion. But of course, if something else works for you, go for it. So we're back in that tabletop. Middle fingers are ever so slightly turned out. I want you to imagine somebody putting a hot beverage on your back, not pouring it. I'm talking like a cup of tea or coffee, holding it there. You don't want it to spill as you slowly start to just sway side to side. So you're really feeling that belly button coming in towards your low back, and you're feeling a nice strength between the shoulder blades. You're not dipping down and creating valleys between the shoulder blades. Even just dipping in my shoulders like this, I can feel a tiny pinch in my low back. So I know that when I'm strong between my shoulders and I have my belly button in towards my low back, that I'm nice and safe. So just playing with this gentle little sway back and forth. Maybe even turning into tiny little circles. And as you're moving through this, I've got to caution you to keep your elbows slightly bent. We never want to lock out our joints fully. And it's especially important for any of us that have hypermobile joints, which I do. So that means that oftentimes when we lock out our joints, they overextend past the normal range of motion, and that's not good for our joints. So just keeping them, no matter where you're at, joints aren't meant to be locked either, because that is very dangerous when you're moving and locking joints, so just keeping the elbows slightly bent. Sometimes I just ramble on. That's what I love about YouTube. I can just talk and talk, but I also trying to keep it together. So taking a couple of deep breaths here. Let's turn the breath in with this cat and cow motion. And this isn't the cat and cow motion yet. We're still moving through a wobbly tabletop here. And so very gently, we're going to start moving through cow. So let me explain it to you. I like to think of cow, time out real fast. I think it goes without saying, but I just want to double check. Make sure that your fingers are spread nice and wide. And let's talk about the pressure of our hands as well as we're moving through this. So I want you to think about where you're putting the weight in your hands. Commonly, we're dumping into our palms. I want you to imagine the center of your dumping into not the palm, but the base of the wrist. So I want you to imagine the center of your palm as a suction cup that's really sticking down into the mat. And then playing with that, swaying and moving in a circular motion. And then gently see if you can transition that weight up through the knuckles. So when you're coming around from the right, you're coming up through the knuckles, the pinky finger, the ring finger, the middle finger, and just feel how you can feel that transitioning to your hands. Of course, your hands are flat on the ground and they're not moving, but I imagine the weight kind of being more like this. And again, like I said, fingers are spread nice and wide because you're creating that strong base for yourself, and you want to feel strong and you want to feel capable. And if your hands at any time are not feeling good, I don't recommend closing up the fingers because that just encourages that dump in the bottom of the wrist. Instead, come back onto your heels, come onto your forearms, let those hands rest up. You can always do like a kneading motion, gently spiraling in the fingers to a little wrist or fist, doing a little roll, unrolling. And then, of course, the option to give your hands a little massage, even coming down into the forearms. This can be a good start to the practice as well before moving through cat and cow, especially if you know that you tend to wake up with tight arms and forearms, wrists, fingers, joints in general. And when you're doing this, I always love saying, let's just give some gratitude to our hands for a moment. We go so often throughout our days with like the little things that we look over every single day, and our hands, right? Our lives would be so different without hands. And maybe some people out there watching this don't even have hands. Like, that's something we really got to think about. So just giving that gratitude, that love. And when you're ready, of course, coming back up to that tabletop position, remembering every little detail. Hands are very slightly turned out. We're nice and strong through the shoulder blades. You feel that belly button in towards the low back. Tailbone might might even be slightly tucked under if that feels like it's helping you maintain this strength. Definitely not arched out at all. So tucking in, starting with that sway side to side again, not locking out the elbows, nice soft elbow joints. And then gently we're just going to transition forward. Imagine somebody pulling at your heart, like there's a string coming from the center of your chest. You're being pulled forward. And just feel how this feels coming here, and then come back to that strong, straight tabletop. When you lean forward, with the heart coming forward, the spine naturally starts to bend a little bit. So I'm here, get a side view for you, I'm here in my tabletop, and as I come forward and press my heart through, you can see my neck naturally wants to lift slightly, and my spine is already curved, coming back to my tabletop. So really, when you go through cat and cow, you don't have to come down through the shoulders and arch that spine and look at the top of the ceiling. It really is not a forceful act at all. It's letting your body move how it was designed to. So again, gently just leaning forward, elbows are still slightly bent, playing with that weight in the hands, maybe that's coming up through the peace finger knuckles. So just coming forward, imagining that heart being pulled through, and when the heart is pulled through, the shoulders are able to roll back. That external rotation I was talking about with the hands ever so slightly turned out. So let's just play with that. You're just gently coming forward with the heart, noticing that the gaze lifts slightly. And maybe that literally is just slightly. You don't need to be cranking your neck at all. I don't want you to hurt your neck here. And then relaxing the jaw too, so that you get this nice little throat stretch. So heart's shining through, gentle lift, coming back to center. You can play with this for just a few rounds, remembering you can always come back down to the child's pose, relaxing those hands if you need to. This is a longer video. We're spending a lot of time on the wrists and forearms. So from our cow position is when you start to come into cat, and that is pressing the ground away. Lots of motions here, all at once. You're pressing the ground away. You start to tuck that chin in towards the chest, and the tailbone starts to round under. So you're creating this huge arch in the spine. And I like to exhale here, because when we exhale, we push all the air out of our bellies, really helping to create this kind of concave motion under the belly. And then gently, and then elbows are straight here. They don't need to be completely locked out again, but you do have straight arms. You're letting the head hang heavy. That jaw is relaxed. The tongue is away from the top of the mouth. And then gently with the inhale is when you start to bend the elbows, and you're not sinking into the shoulders. You're really just pulling that heart forward again, coming through. Gentle lift of the gaze. Exhaling through cat. So just doing this for a couple rounds, just getting that feel. Especially when you know that it's just such a small little movement, and you give yourself the space to go very slow and move with your breath. That is where you really master the pose and the proper postures. Because when we're moving through yoga classes, it's so quick. It's like, okay, inhale, exhale, and you're just like, I mean, obviously it's not like that, but I just want you to be careful, and I want you to explore your body. And I don't have time to break down this detailed in every yoga class. We're 15 minutes in already. So from here, I want you to really start finding your own unique motions. This is where it starts getting fun. So we'll start the transition from cow with the heart forward, exhaling, coming back to cat. There are so many options. One that I like is tenting the fingers and gently coming up onto the tips of the fingers. Coming back through cow. Another option when you come back is wiggling those hips. That's one of my favorite things, just gently shaking the hips side to side. Always got to get that exhale with it. Inhale, coming forward. Letting the heart lead. Exhaling, rounding the spine. Another option, turning just a little bit into the shoulder blades. So you get a little stretch shoot through the blade, through the side of the body. And then inhaling forward to cow. And of course, you can create as much motion as you want. When you come forward to cow, if it feels good to kind of shimmy the shoulders or hold for a breath and do a lion's breath out, anything that works for you. One or two more breaths, remembering if you need to rest the wrists, feel free. I'll admit my wrists are getting tired for sure. Another good one I like is just bringing a finger to touch the thumb. That helps to stretch out the hands, and I can feel my forearms stretching as well. So let's start playing even more with this pose. So you're coming back up into that perfect tabletop with the middle fingers ever so slightly turned out. Your belly button's towards the low back so that your spine is protected. Your shoulders are nice and solid. No valleys between the blades. Gently coming forward for that inhale. Exhaling, rounding the spine. Coming up onto the tips of the fingers. Gently making our way back to a child's pose. Relaxing into it. Full inhale, full exhale. And gently as the next inhale comes, you're going to lift the gaze. Pull the shoulders back into their sockets so that you can come up over the elbows. It's like you're pulling pulling the forearms towards you, but they're not actually moving. So if they were, this might be what it looks like. But they're not actually moving, and you're just using the muscles. So coming up, you're lifting the heart. Following with the heart. You're going to have to bring the hands under the shoulders. Lifting the heart, lifting the gaze, inhaling. Exhaling, rounding the spine. We're going a little faster, sitting back into the heels. One full inhale. Exhale. Inhale, lifting the gaze, rolling the shoulders back, coming through. This is just one other motion that I like. It's just fun to play with. And then you can reverse that as well. And so when you reverse it, we also reverse our breath. And so this is the other side of cat and cow, is that you can reverse your breath. You don't have to exhale when you round the spine. And you don't have to inhale when you come forward. But again, I will admit, it feels better for my body. And there are pros and cons to either side that I can't think of off the top of my head at this moment. So just find what works for you. Do what feels good. And then challenge yourself to just try the other way occasionally. So to reverse that, let me see. Okay, we're exhaling. We're coming back to child's pose. So on an inhale, we're going to inhale back to cat. Coming up nice and big stretch. Inhaling, belly inflates a little. And then with the exhale, pressing down through the hands, leading through the heart. Gently coming down, inhaling through child's pose again. One breath here. Inhaling up. Exhaling, leading with the heart. So I'm going to leave you here. Continue to explore, continue to play. Just notice what feels good, what's different. I just love exploring here. Just notice, for example, when you're in cat, how easy it is to just want to sink into the shoulders and sink into the spine and like, oh, now I'm in cow. Really remembering to lead with the heart, to really slowly flow and see which muscles are connecting and how it feels to move a certain way or how something reacts. Like, Like when I lean over to the right side, how light does my hand get, and are my hips off center? Just really drawing this awareness to your body and playing with it. The most important part is to have fun and to just explore. And you are in the safest space to be able to do that, watching this on the internet, out in your own safe space, because we get intimidated when we go to yoga classes. So I hope that this helps you to explore this motion, to know what you like, what feels good. And also do remember that I know it takes a lot of courage and it is intimidating to go to a yoga class, but it's your yoga class, it's your practice, and it's beautiful that you want to show up and have your own practice in a community setting. Think of it that way. That's how I like to think about it. I hope this helped you, and I hope you have a really great day.